What's up, champs? Welcome to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Short Shifts Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the podcast so nice we named it thrice. I am your host, Ben Burnett. Joining me, as per usual, my good pal and yours, Louis Ezekiel. Louis, my friend, welcome back to the show, the Zoom call and the Twitch stream that we're on. How you doing tonight?
Good. Yeah, we have so many different forms of media that we can use to be in touch with each other. It's very nice.
Yeah, some people would call this multimedia.
Absolutely. And I'm very excited. We have several injuries to talk about. So after all the chatter from the last episode of Keeping Karlsson, where Elon lamented having to go through the motions and, honor the injured folks, I'm very excited to just disrespect them and then move straight on to the very important fantasy hockey business.
Yeah, that's a very funny joke, and also makes me just want to know, does it really count as lamenting the injury if you are feeling forced to do it? You know what I mean?
Oh, sure. That's a good question. I understand where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, is Elon secretly problematic about injuries? That's the real question.
I think Elon finds what he sees as required social graces as unnecessary.
All right, Lewis, let's get into the fantasy hockey part of the show. And why don't you kick us off tonight?
All right. Well, the first player that we are disrespecting today, no, I'm sorry. Some very unfortunate news, certainly, from the Avalanche camp, as Nathan MacKinnon left Monday's game in the first period after suffering an upper body injury and did not return. The lines from the game were pretty chaotic after he left. So there was no trio that managed more than 5 minutes and 13 seconds of even strength time together. So I don't think we should speculate about lines until we see some practice lines come out here. Certainly, the big story here is that it was announced officially now from the Avalanche Twitter feed that MacKinnon is likely to miss about 4 weeks. So that's a good chunk of time here. Certainly hurts for those MacKinnon owners. And it's one of those injuries, that is a downgrade across the team. Certainly, the one thing that I think that is beneficial about, a place like Colorado as opposed to maybe Columbus, where we've talked about lots of injuries and who's filling in on the power play, but is the power play really what it used to be with the injuries? Colorado is a situation where there is enough talent, especially with Rantanen and Makar, to kind of make anyone stepping into that spot still be worthwhile, despite losing, obviously, a pretty critical player in MacKinnon. So the top unit was Comfort, Newhook, Rantanen, Taves, and Makar on the power play. Taves was the MacKinnon replacement after the first period. Newhook managed a power play goal and an even strength goal on 2 shots. Comfort got an assist and 3 shots, and both played well over 20 minutes. They likely won't see that much usage without mid-game injuries, but they've still been seeing big minutes lately. Comfort has at least 19 minutes in 5 of the last 6 games. Newhook has seen 20 minutes at least in 2 straight. Is this a situation where you think you would want to just rush out and grab one of them if they are available, or are you thinking that you would want to wait and see lines, maybe see who lines up with Rantanen if both guys are available?
I mean, I think obviously we talk a lot about league dependency, and I think for the most part it's in this case you're wondering, okay, is one of these guys gone already? Are they number one with a bullet on the Yahoo transaction trends list because everyone else in other leagues has been adding them, and as a result they're kind of they're 2 of the best options left. I think those are sort of the considerations that I try and put into making a decision like this as to whether I'm going to run out. For the most part, though, I presume that you're sort of waiting to see who plays where, and for me, it's Colorado does have 2 off-night games this week, one tomorrow, one on Sunday, and then they have a game on Friday, which is a busy night. So, I mean, that's pretty decent for this week. There's not a ton of teams that have 2 off nights. I guess it's not amazing, but it's pretty good. And I think that Colorado is a team where there's so much opportunity that it's not like I'm against swinging, taking a home run swing on one of these guys early. So I think I would take Comfort over Newhook because he's seen more minutes for longer, and I just feel like Newhook is going to be on a shorter leash. So that's where I lead. What about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. And when I took Comfer over Newhook, it was looking at the, more consistent shooting. And like you said, the better minutes over a longer period of time. If you look back in the game log, you see, Newhook with some 15-minute games back there, whereas Newhook has been consistently in those high teens or low 20s. And outside of a 5-shot game, I think that generally we've been seeing, Comfer shooting more as well. So that's where I leaned, when I actually grabbed him last week before we had the injury. But I'm hoping that, that'll turn into something for me moving forward. But yeah, I think you've got the right idea there.
All right, Lewis, we'll head to Edmonton next for another injury. Zach Hyman missed Monday night's Oilers loss against Washington. Fortunately, it looks like Mark Spector reported today that Hyman is likely to return Wednesday. Looking at what that likely means for the Oilers with Hyman out of the lineup, Jesse Puljujarvi got an even bigger role, I should say, on Power Play 1, while continuing to ride shotgun with McDavid and Draisaitl. And shockingly, he continued to be very bad. Just 6 points in 25 games this year for Puljujarvi. Kyler Yamamoto returned from injury on Monday and played with RNH and Matthias Janmark. No points for Yamamoto and just 3 assists in 14 games this year. Those two sort of switched back and forth on Power Play 1. We'll talk a little bit more about the current iteration of the Oilers Power Play in the second half of our show, Lewis. But yeah, hopefully someday these Oilers can turn a homegrown option into a middle six contributor, which sounds like lofty expectations, I know, but maybe someday. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it certainly seems lofty given the recent track record there for sure. Speaking of developmental projects, let's talk a little bit about Shane Wright, the supposed number one lock who fell into the Kraken's collective lap this summer. He's returned to Seattle following a successful conditioning stint in which he scored 4 goals in 5 games. This is good news for anyone hanging on to him in a keeper league. I wouldn't rush out to grab him in a 1 year, unless we see some production or some quality power play deployment. Definitely good, I think, to see him, get back on track, playing down a level. But it does seem like, he's unlikely to break into the top 6 anytime soon. There is some cause for optimism. We saw him practicing with the third line today after practicing on line 4 on Monday. He was centering Gord and Oliver Bjorkstrand, so that certainly is a better option, than being down on the fourth line. But exciting, I think, from a hockey standpoint and maybe for folks in those keeper leagues. But as far as your 1 year leagues are concerned, I don't think it is especially important, but certainly rooting for him and looking forward to see what he is able to do now that he's got a couple get-right games.
Yeah, I think the thing with Shane Wright is the same as, there will be a lot of moments like this throughout the season where a kid from the AHL is called up, high pedigree. You've heard of him before. Most of the people that follow hockey closely have heard of this person before. And it's like, is this the moment? And with Shane Wright, based on the lines that you're talking about, Lewis, doesn't really excite me. You mentioned the 4 goals in 5 games. I do believe it's 5 and 6. But immaterial. Just the point is he was very, very good in his conditioning stint. And so I can understand getting a little excited, but just based on this exact moment, I'm not too pumped. I would want to see him getting, let's see him score a goal in the NHL and then let's see him get a few extra minutes on the ice and go from there. I kind of want to jump to talk about a couple of Columbus players who are in a similar situation. 2 patrons asked us about a couple of rookies playing on Columbus's top power play tonight, starting with Kirill Marchenko, who Columbus recalled earlier this week and who is currently getting his first taste of NHL action versus Pittsburgh. Marchenko was drafted in the second round by the Jackets in 2018 and didn't come over to North America until this year, where he's been on a tear in the AHL, 8 goals and 19 points through 16 games for Marchenko. He's also averaging more than 3 shots per game, which is really nice. Was starting on line 3 tonight, and according to the box score, is seeing about 7 minutes 2 periods in. So looking like he'll average about 10 and a half minutes tonight, which isn't ideal, but it is his first game in the NHL. And this is why I'm the type of person to wait on players like this. As I mentioned with Wright, I'm going to mention it again with Marchenko. I know we have a lot of patrons who jumped on Marchenko. He got snapped up in Tier 2 of the Cupful, the San Jose division that I play in, by a team that beat me last week. So our friend Shane. And I think that it could very well work out just based on how good the pedigree is, how many points he's put up this year. He looks like he's a player. The question is, does he put it together this season? And for me, it's really hard to add a guy I just really can't stand waiting, for a player that I haven't seen it from before. So to me, that's the sort of player I avoid. Another patron question about Marcus Bjork, who has now been on the top power play for Columbus on the point for the past 8 games, has racked up 3 power play points in that span. Unfortunately, those are the only points he's put up in the last 8 games. Really doesn't do anything for you for hit shots or blocks, averaging around 1 per game in each category. So to me, if I'm looking at Marchenko, I'm looking at Wright, I'm looking at Marcus Bjork. These are the definition of watch list guys for me, where I want to see what they do. I want to see what their time on ice is. I want to make sure I'm watching to see the line combos. If you wanted to take a swing here, I'd probably take it on Marchenko, who's playing on we mentioned getting that top power play look with Patrick Laine and Johnny Gaudreau, who continue to be extremely hot. So I would probably swing on Marchenko, unless Shane Wright has a big game tonight later tonight, in which case I would probably start to buy into that hype as well, just cause, it's exciting, eh?
Yeah, I definitely like the idea of kind of sitting and waiting. I think it's been instructive, seeing, for instance, how things have gone with Marco Rossi this season. A guy that kind of was pegged like, hey, he had his kind of seasoning year last year and things weren't great, but, he seems very likely, it's a question of when, not if, he'll take over that top line center role. Obviously, we haven't seen that happen. So a good reminder that if we haven't really seen it from that player ever yet, don't get too excited until we start to see it in the real world. You don't want to fall kind of for that hopium about these young players before we really see them put it all together. And we know that teams will be patient, will take their time with them, sometimes to an aggravating degree, for those fantasy managers who are really looking forward to seeing these young players put it all together and get out there. But these coaches have teams to run. They're trying to win their games. They're trying to develop these players, but not just put the whole weight of the team on their shoulders right away, the way we sometimes maybe would hope to see it.
Lewis, we are going to take a very quick break. When we come back, we've got some St. Louis Blues to talk about. You're listening to Short Shifts. Welcome back to Short Shifts. We're talking David Jiricek in the ad break. Join us on twitch.tv/KeepingCarlson for all of the inside jokes. And Lewis, we have one more injury to talk about tonight, or 2, I suppose, both in St. Louis. So I'm wrapping them together in my head. Late injuries for the Blues tonight, as Pavel Buchnevich and Torrey Krug both missed tonight's game. Coach Craig Berube said they are waiting for doctors to do a full evaluation of their top line left winger and their top power play quarterback. In the meantime, the Blues moved Jordan Kyrou to the left side on that team's scoring line with Rob Thomas and Vlad Tarasenko. And Josh Levo took Kyrou's spot on Ryan O'Reilly's wing. St. Louis has 2 more games this week, both off nights, so check that waiver wire to see if anyone interesting is there. Lewis, I know you're a big fan of Josh Levo, who scored tonight. So with that,
1 goal, 1 assist.
1 goal,
so
1 assist. Yes, against your hapless Cupful team.
Well, they have hap. There's a little bit of hap there. Not a ton of hap, but some hap. Not completely hapless.
I'm really sorry I said that. All right.
I wouldn't sweat it too much. Austin Matthews will figure out how to play hockey one of these days, right? He simply must.
Why don't you talk about another player that we both love to cheer against?
Ah, yes. So we had this as a request on Discord to talk about Binnington's cold streak and maybe take responsibility for it. Is that the case?
We deserve responsibility for this. We've been working a long time preying on Jordan Binnington's downfall.
So in the third week of November, Ben and I discussed Binnington, who was enjoying a 6-game winning streak. He had had 5 quality starts in that stretch. And I remember pretty clearly, as Ben closed the segment, he mentioned, like a dang prophet, that while Binnington's streak was nice, he wouldn't recommend trading a valuable piece for him during the hot streak, and that it was as likely we'd be talking about a bad run as it would be a continuation of the good one the next time he came up. And since that mention, since starting right immediately after that, Binnington has been in a total tailspin. 6 straight losses, no quality starts, 4, count them, 4 really bad starts, under 850 save percentage. None of those starts has seen him nose over 900 save percent Mendoza line, and he's been getting up to his same stupid antics that we see from him when he's frustrated. He hit Jason Zucker in the face with his glove. He earned a misconduct penalty, chirping at the Penguins bench after he was pulled following a 4th goal. And Coach Craig Berube was unimpressed. He said, it's got to stop. It doesn't really help anything. Just play goal. Stop the puck. That is some harsh words there for Binnington, who has seen as quickly as it began, his lovely run really turn sour very quickly. So I don't know, not much to recommend here, except that if you have Binnington, you probably still need to hang on. He doesn't have a lot of pressure behind him. Greiss is fine as a backup, but he's not somebody who's likely to try and steal a ton of starts. We saw him, not successfully do that last year in Detroit. Certainly you can't sell him, right now while he's at his rock bottom. So yeah, I think for our Binnington owners, sorry for what we've done. But you just got to hang in there and hope that he can turn things around. Maybe you try to sell him at a higher point than where he is now if he can get a couple wins going. It is up to you how you choose to proceed through the rest of the season with this volatile goalie.
I'm going to push back on this a little bit. I mean, first of all, I'm going to accept all of the credit that you just gave me for Jordan Binnington's cold streak. Second of all, though, I mean, Thomas Greiss currently is rocking a 960, a minute and a half left in the second period against the New York Islanders. What could go wrong, you know? Not to jinx the poor boy. I feel like when people are listening to this is going to be a ironic footnote. But just to say that based on what you're saying, Lewis, about Berube's comments after the game, he doesn't sound like a coach who's like, I gotta get Jordan back in after a good game from the backup. It sounds like he's very open to giving, or he would be very open to giving whoever plays best the next start. So I just wouldn't be shocked to see Tomas Greiss getting the next game. And that is another off night game for the Blues. So it's very possible that that's a stream option for you, going against the, Winnipeg, which, not easy, but it's a home game. Yeah, I don't know.
You're feeling it a little bit from.
Well, what I'll say, first of all, what I will say is it's just as likely in 3 weeks we're talking about how wow, he really turned it around or whatever. Like the reason why I was correct is because I correctly predicted that a goalie would be unpredictable, or regress to a mean. But looking at Jordan Binnington and into the future, or into the past, I should say, this is a guy who was having a terrible streak like a month ago as well, and then turned it around immediately. So if he was dropped at that point in your league, it kind of breaks the ice a little bit, right? Like you can kind of, if he's been dropped or you got him off the waiver wire because somebody dropped him earlier in the year and then he went hot, you could probably drop him and just keep your eye on it. Maybe you add him back for the Sunday night game against Washington, or, just keep your eye on the situation. Maybe you lose him, but if you got him off the waiver wire, whatever, you're probably going to find another starter there before too long anyway.
Yeah, that is a really interesting point about kind of the psychology of how the league works. Because once you see that player on the waiver wire, it becomes kind of more acceptable. It's like normalized to see that player on the waiver wire. And it doesn't become that sort of like frantic, oh, we have to grab this guy because he's here for the first time. It's like, oh yeah, I've seen him there before. Nothing to get all head up over. Maybe I'll grab him if I feel like it. But, it does seem less frantic. I think that's a really interesting observation.
Over to Edmonton next, where we have a cold streak that complements Brian and Elon on the Mega Show. They discussed Evan Bouchard's recent hot streak on Sunday, mentioning that he and Tyson Barrie have been switching off on that top power play unit. I went to shiftchart.com to sort of see what has been going on, and basically the Oilers are back to what they did last year with the 1A, 1B power play units where McDavid, Nugent-Hopkins, and Draisaitl will play a full 2 minutes while Hyman and Barrie will alternate with Puljujärvi or Yamamoto and Evan Bouchard. Which, to me, when I found that out, I thought to myself, okay, maybe this isn't a death knell for Tyson Barrie then. He's been stinky cold. He's got 3 points in his last 10. But he was at least enjoying clear top power play deployment, playing the lion's share of the power play minutes for 22 of Edmonton's first 23 games. And then over Edmonton's last 3 games, Bouchard has edged him out in total power play minutes each time, even though Tyson Barrie continues to regularly start that power play shift. So it's kind of interesting. I don't know if this is a coach's decision or just the fact that he doesn't want to risk the players getting caught out there for too long, so he swaps them out at the 45-second mark, and then the 1B unit, the second unit, ends up with a minute 15. That seems to be what is happening more than anything that's eating all of Barrie's power play time on ice. However, I mean, it's not meaningless though, right? Like that means a chunk of minutes that he was getting in which he was the most dangerous are just completely halved. So I feel like with Edmonton in general, there's this real risk of splitting the baby here by having 2 top power play quarterbacks. Do they really have one? And I don't think if Barrie is a 1B or even in a 1A, 1B situation that he's a must hold. He paced for 45 points last year and he's pacing for 46 points this year. It's, it is what it is. He is not a player that is going to get you 70 points unless he's getting 70% of the power play time on ice. And that doesn't seem to be likely at this point in the season or really moving forward. So I think in shallow leagues, he's very droppable. In deeper leagues, what I would do though is I would go talk to somebody who maybe doesn't realize that he's splitting the power play time on ice, who, saw the 2 power play assists the other night with McDavid and Draisaitl. Those are still going to show up. He's not going to never point again, but I think he's a little bit closer to a Kalen Addison at this point than he is to a John Carlson. Although in fairness to Kalen Addison, he's been pretty decent so far, or the past week or two, but I digress. Tyson Barrie, pretty low on him right now.
Yeah, same here. I do want to mention, actually, this is a bit of a tangent, but, with Kalen Addison's recent success, that Minnesota power play has just been going crazy. I was looking at Joel Eriksson Ek, and because he has had a ton of power play points. The guys talked about it on the big show. That power play has gone 8 for 19 over the last 6 games. Hard to see that level of power play success continuing, but great for them. In the meantime, that was a pretty toothless power play for quite a while during this season, and so to have them go nearly 50% is really nice. But yeah, I'm with you on Barrie. Not very exciting to me. He just he is what he is. And at this point, it seems like he is a guy whose star has faded, for where he saw him previously when he was a true top, power play quarterback option. Not super enthused about him. He just he is what he appears to be over these last couple of seasons, as you were saying. Let's talk about one more guy on a very hot but very brief streak here, and that is Kasperi Kapanen. He scored a hat trick against the aforementioned goaltending stalwart Jordan Binnington and the Blues, which followed up a 1-goal, 1-assist performance against Washington. All of this is prior to Tuesday night's games. I don't have those numbers in here. Great to see, but he is only playing 11 to 12 minutes a game on line 3 with Carter and Brock McGinn. I will say that power play 2 deployment has been pretty decent. We've seen players like Rust and Carter and Zucker down there. So, not a bad second power play. He could be worth an add if you're hoping for him to keep up this very efficient pace. But, despite the hot production, excited to see him. Certainly, you don't get to play against Jordan Binnington every game of the season, especially when you're in the Eastern Conference. So, despite that nice production, I think I would prefer to look elsewhere for a hot streak add.
And he's been quiet tonight, correct? I haven't, I guess, looked in a hot minute, but no points for Kapanen tonight. That's right.
Don't believe so. It looks like it's mostly been driven by the top line. Yeah.
Jakey Gantz, my boy. Kapanen, if he was getting more time on ice, would be much more exciting. Looks like he's also playing a Kirill Marchenko-esque 7.5 minutes tonight. 1 shot on goal, 3 hits. I was excited to see those shot totals since he came back. That was kind of making me buy into Kapanen. I considered streaming him in tonight, so glad I avoided that. Lewis, I am also very glad to have sat down and chatted with you tonight, and looking forward already to our Thursday night show. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to all of our listeners for hanging out with us. Come by twitch.tv/KeepingKarlsson on Thursday. Do the same.
Yeah, we've got some fun stuff going on. There's always just some goofy talk. You can see behind the scenes a little bit. And we enjoy having a little live audience here to chat with. But yeah, thanks everyone, of course, for joining us. Please give us a follow on the old Twitter machine before it all burns down at Short Shifts KK. Brian and Elon can be found at Keeping Karlsson, and Dave Benton of the Stream Scheme hangs around at NHL Stream Scheme. Also recommend you follow at Game Day Lines, at Game Day Goalies, and at Game Day News NHL, all organized so nicely at GameDayLineTweets.com. Our intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach, and John Reed is our digital media producer and podcast cutie. Until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short.